Hello, and welcome to another episode of Attempted Living, where I'm going to talk about things that hopefully you can benefit from hearing. Today, we're going to talk about performance enhancing behaviors. And what does that mean is so when I talk about performance enhancing behaviors, first is what does it mean? Second is what you can do. Third is why to do it. Well, I'll talk about why to do it, the pros and cons of doing it. And yeah, so I'll dive into what that is. So, enhancing behaviors is what I'm calling uh, behaviors that you can train yourself to do in order to get what you want more often. So in the last video titled Identity, I talked about how lots of people will live their life and here's the plane of them living their life. Like they'll wake up, they'll use the restroom, maybe eat breakfast, go to work, and then leave work, do what they want, or like they go to school, work, or there's some daytime activity and then they go home, evening activities, and then sleep. So this is them living their life, right? So then here, last video, I talked about how you can spend some time to think about how you're spending your time, to think about what activities you're engaging in and how you feel afterwards and what you get afterwards, so that you can revise how you may be living your life, because you might find that, oh, hey, like every time I eat this particular food, 2 hours later I feel terrible. Or if I eat this particular food, then I can't sleep, or I have a stomach ache, or I can't focus on whatever I'm doing. So this video is about spending more time here in the self-reflection page, spending more time in self-reflection and self-analysis to determine what to do and how to spend your time in a way that will benefit you. And one of the things I mentioned in the last video was to keep track of how you're spending your time and how you feel afterwards. And what you're going to find is that if you keep detailed notes, it will become fairly easy to detect patterns. So if you're feeling good today, then you can look at your notes and go, oh, what did I do for the last 5 hours? And then you can mark, okay, I feel good right now. And then if you do this for 10 days in a row, and out of the 10 days, you feel good like 5 of the days, if you look at all 5 days, you're probably going to find some details of each day that are consistent. And so, for example, for me, when I did this exercise, I found that, oh, if 5 days in a row, the previous night, I had a good night's sleep, then I feel great. I feel amazing. Alternatively, if for the last 3 days in a row, I ate dinner at erratic times, like one day I'll eat at 4 p.m. and then 9 p.m. And then another day I'll eat at 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. And then the third day I'll eat at like a huge meal at 8 o'clock and finish at 9. Then all of this is going to disrupt my ability to sleep. So if I see 3 days in a row where I don't sleep well and I don't feel good today, and then I look at my eating times, then it becomes clear, oh, the reason I'm not able to sleep is because my stomach is full and when I lie down, it doesn't feel good. And so this exercise is extremely effective in detecting performance-enhancing behaviors, because you're going to find that if you behave in a way, for example, eating at a consistent time for dinner and a consistent amount, then your body will process the food at a normal pace that your body is comfortable with, because that's what you do every day. And then it's more likely to then build the habit of falling asleep at the same time as well. So performance enhancing behaviors, I'm going to now, so hopefully that kind of described what it is. And so now I'm going to talk about the behaviors that I found to be performance enhancing in my life when I went through this exercise. So when I was in school, I was pushed to excel at school by my parents. And so when I approached this problem, the outcome that I wanted was to do well in school. And so then, so in that example, so what I would do is I would write down in detail what I did each day, what I did for each class, what I did to prepare for each test. And then I would see the outcome. Oh, what test score did I get? So then I could look back and say, oh, okay, if I got a 60% and I did these 1, 2, 3 things, and then the next time I get an 80% and I did 1, 2, 3, 4 things, then okay, I should do that fourth thing more often. And then if I see this pattern arise over the course of 20 different tests, then I can confirm that, okay, doing this fourth thing does in fact improve my test scores. One of the first things that I did was to invest in skills that would improve my ability to achieve. One skill was speed reading. If you want to excel in life and in school and in work in general, I highly recommend you look up some free resources about speed reading. I came upon this performance-enhancing behavior because I noticed that reading is an activity that I was writing down a lot in my journal. Like every day I would do reading. Every class has reading. Read a textbook, read the lecture notes, read the homework, read this, read this, read this. Reading is something that people do a lot each day. And so if you think about it, reading, the goal is to see a bunch of words and understand it. And this can be broken up into, this can be measured, right? You can measure how many words per minute you're able to read. And so if you think about it, if for school you have to read 1,000 words per day, and you can read it at 100 minutes, if you can read it at 10 words per minute, it'll take you 100 minutes to finish your work. But if you train yourself to read 100 words per minute, then it'll take you 10 minutes to finish. And if you train yourself to read 1,000 words a minute, it'll take you 1 minute to finish. So what I looked up was that the average person in school would read between 1 and 300 words per minute. So that means if your class is graded on a curve and you want to be average, then you would shoot for reading between 100 to 300 words per minute, because then you'll be learning at the same speed as everyone else. But if you want to be better than everyone else, then an easy way is to read faster than everyone else, because then you can learn faster than everyone else. You can finish your homework faster than everyone else. And so I highly recommend speed reading. If you increase your speed to 1,000 words per minute, then you're 3 times faster than all of your peers, which means that if the teacher says, read 200 pages of this book to write this essay, your friends are going to take 6 to 10 hours to do it, but you'll be done in 2. So that means you have an additional 4 to 8 hours for you to invest in other performance enhancing behaviors. So the second performance enhancing behavior I'll talk about is memory tricks. So I also found that a lot of school, work, and life is about remembering things. And so if it takes you, let's say you have to memorize 10 vocabulary words. If it takes you 10 minutes per word, that means it will take you 100 minutes to finish, right? And I think for most people, it takes more than 10 minutes per word. I think for most people, learning a new word, you have to repeat it multiple times, you have to use it multiple times. It could take maybe half an hour to learn a new word, in which case to learn 10 words takes 5 hours. So learning And this is just vocabulary. What about learning concepts, right? Learning concepts in class, in school, remembering details about people that you meet. These are all memory. It's a skill of memory. And so, in addition to investing in speed reading, you should invest in speed memorization. So rather than taking 5 hours to learn 10 words, there are tricks that you can Google and search up that can teach you how to memorize the words really fast. You could probably memorize 10 words in 10 minutes or less if you wanted to, by training your mind. Then just think about that. You finished in 10 minutes the work that someone else will take 5 hours to finish. This gives you an additional 4 hours and 50 minutes to now invest in other performance enhancing behaviors. Other performance enhancing behaviors are have to do with your physical body, because at the end of the day, your mental performance is limited by your physical body. Say, for example, you fall down and your arm is broken and you're bleeding on the inside. There's no way that you should be speed reading at this moment because you're going to die from internal blood loss. So you need to go take care of your body first. That's an extreme example. I guess less extreme example is if you're really sick, then you can't focus, you're too tired, you're just laying in bed, throwing up, and not feeling that great. So then my point is that the third performance enhancing behavior you should really look into is optimizing your physical health for performance. So whatever your performance is, if it's school, it's probably mental. If it's sports, then it's sports. But the approach is the same. You want to write down what time you're sleeping. Sleep is number 1. How much water you're drinking is number 2. What kind of food you're eating is number 3. 4 is what time you're doing all of these things. What time do you wake up? What time do you sleep? What time do you eat? And what do you eat at what time? Certain foods you should only eat in the morning, never at night. Other foods you should eat only at night. And something else that I learned through this is that, for example, certain foods allow me to perform different activities better. So let's say tomorrow I have a math test. Then I know that I should eat more salad and vegetables before the math test because that makes me do well in math. But let's say the following day I have a history test, and I know that eating pasta is highly correlated with really good performance for me in history. So then I'll eat pasta before history tests. You're going to find that everyone's body is different. So you need to do this research for yourself. But if you run through the data, you're going to find a lot of performance enhancing behaviors and opportunities for you to improve your outcomes and get what you want more often. So far in this video, first I defined performance enhancing behaviors, which is to write down your activities and then reflect on them and think about the effect of each activity and what outcome you want, and then use that information to change your habits. The second part of the video, I talked about different performance enhancing tricks that I've used and learned over the years to improve my performance and success. Now, the third one that I want to talk about is, let's say that you're trying to achieve, basically how to learn from other people. So in this world, everyone has something to teach you. And as you're learning something, there's going to be tons of people better than you at something. And so the way that you can approach systematically getting better at something else and systematically figuring out how to compete with and beat people who you're trying to beat is to figure out what is their list of steps that they do. What are their habits? What are their activities? What is their structure that they use behind the scenes so that when they go to perform at that test or that, in whatever it is that they're achieving that you want to achieve, it's the setup that makes it successful. So try to figure out what they're doing to set up their success, because watching the success is just a small fraction of what it takes to achieve that success. So if you see someone else who is successful and you want to be that successful, start by figuring out what is their life activities, what is the structure of their life, what makes them so successful, and then start copying and trying different of those tactics in your life. You may find none of it works, but at least try, because it's highly likely that something that works for someone else is also going to work for you, and you can benefit from this. In the event that you run out of things to try, then you have to be more creative and experimental, and then you have to invent things to try and try them. Cool. So that's part 3 of this video. I guess part 4, I should talk about the difficulty of doing this. So the reason that people find this difficult is that to begin, you have to admit fault. You have to admit that the outcome that you're currently getting, which is not what you want to do better than what you're currently getting, but you have to begin by saying the outcome that you're currently getting is your fault, because there actually exists things that you could have done to do better than how you did. And that is a tough pill to swallow, because no one wants to be told you didn't do your best. And it's important to recognize that in this exercise, as you learn from your past mistakes, you should forgive your past self for making those mistakes and acknowledge that even though you weren't performing at your all-time best, you were performing at your best at that time. Like last year, before you had learned that doing this extra step would make you more successful, you didn't do that extra step, which through many months and weeks of self-reflection, you realized, oh, you should do this extra step and then you'll do better. Forgive yourself for not knowing about that extra step, and celebrate the discovery of that extra step. And then as you learn to incorporate that extra step into your habits, forgive yourself if you make a mistake or forget or revert to your past habits. These are all normal parts of the process of learning. And so it's very important that you do not fall into the trap of over-criticizing yourself to the point of losing hope, losing self-confidence, losing self-worth, losing the capacity to face the truth. That's the key thing, because the only way that you can ever succeed in this exercise is if you're honest. When you write down what you did, it has to be honest. And when you write down the outcome, it has to be honest. If you lie about it, then the conclusions that you reach will be based on a false reality. And living in a false reality is not going to help your actual reality. So that's very important. I wish you the best of luck. Remember that everyone starts somewhere. You are valuable no matter where you start. And as you learn more about yourself, learn more about the performance-enhancing behaviors you have available to yourself to do better, remember to forgive yourself and be kind to yourself along the way as you learn. Okay? Good luck.